there anyone who hasn't heard of CosMc's over the last year or so? No one's heard? Yeah, no? Ah, that was a joke hand, yeah. I think we've all heard of CosMc's. And in fact, you know, these two gentlemen on stage here today, they just told me that a lot of you have actually been asking them questions about what it is, how it came to be, and I know they've kind of been like palming you off because we didn't want spoilers. But just for a quick recap of what exactly it is and what the coverage that this concept has attracted over the last little while, we're actually going to play a short little video, and then we're going to jump into a really fascinating conversation.
McDonald's is opening its new concept store.
A lot of excitement in Bolingbrook yesterday.
A spicy queso sandwich
Called CosMc's.
There were hundreds of people waiting in line.
Hundreds of people have been lining up to get a first taste.
CosMc's.
This might be the new Starbucks.
The burger chain is trying out a new concept called CosMc's, which it hopes can compete with cafes like Starbucks.
The hot new contender in America's coffee wars.
I think it might be better than Starbucks and Dunkin'.
It was very, very exciting to be the first, not just in the United States, but in the world.
CosMc's is this out-of-this-world experience.
Joey, come back and see us, all right? It's out of this world.
Customers are already loving it.
That is really good.
New chain is, quote, rooted in beverage exploration.
Can't pick a favorite.
I actually flew out from London just to try this place. This is unreal.
All right, so we got the food, they've got the cool little cups, they got the bags, just taste. That's really good.
Specialty coffee drinks, slushies, and snacks.
Look at all those drinks out there.
That's a lot of drinks.
And so far, customers are loving it.
The hash brown bites, these are good too. The mini donuts that are filled, these are so good.
New flavors and bright colors.
The sauce on that sandwich was absolutely delicious.
It's so creamy. It's so good. I love it.
Menu choices seemed endless.
This was delicious.
The company did their soft opening yesterday
People waited in line for hours.
We've been here almost 2 hours, I would say.
to a tremendous response.
Bolingbrook leading the way. The company's roughly 10-city pilot program.
Wow, let's give that a round of applause, right? We're so fortunate to be able to have Sean Schrader and Josh Wesolowski with us here today. You know, I'm going to throw to you guys right now just to give us an introduction about you know, what you do on this project and also just a brief history of your background with McDonald's. And thank you also for wearing your matching CosMc's shoes. Yeah.
Absolutely. Wait, I had to represent. Do you want to go first?
Sure. Sean Schrader, I'm Director for Development, overseeing real estate design and construction for CosMc's. Previous to that, I worked at McDonald's for roughly 8 years, and then did some private work in the design field.
Okay. Awesome. So Josh Wesolowski, I've been with McDonald's for about 9 years. Before CosMc's, where I currently run all of the digital and technology for CosMc's. Before that, I was working in the U.S. business and did a little bit with our Experience of the Future program, and then moved to digital and did Ready on Arrival and some of our Order Ahead lane concept globally. So.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's, we're super pumped to be able to be doing this today. I want to jump straight into it. Look, this is the first concept that McDonald's has rolled out in the U.S. in its 60-year history. Why do it? Why CosMc's? Why this concept? How did it come to be? And then I guess, you know, what's the overall vision for it?
Yeah, so CosMc's came to be, you know, because McDonald's is really operating in a position of strength right now. We've had some really good years through the pandemic, and that's given us the right to innovate. And I think also we're always looking at how to reinvent ourselves. So, you know, CosMc's is kind of that opportunity space for us to participate in one of the fastest growing segments in IEO. So McDonald's, right, historically a food-led occasion with a beverage accompaniment. So think about a burger with a drink or Egg McMuffin with a McCafe. CosMc's is that beverage-led occasion, right? And the beverage-led occasion with a food accompaniment. And that, you know, is also one of the things that we're really focused on with this concept is around customization and some of the things that we can't do in the traditional four walls of a McDonald's. So in McDonald's, right, if you think about adding in a super highly customized beverage to, a kitchen that's pumping out burgers and fries, you can quickly see how you could create some tension within the back of house. So, we're really focused on how do we layer in customization and doing some things that you just can't do in a traditional McDonald's. So that's kind of where we're looking to make sure that this is our big growth opportunity for the brand. It's a separate brand from McDonald's, so it's got some of the DNA of McDonald's, but it's also just its very own energetic new extension of the brand.
Right. Okay. Why is it called CosMc's?
So actually, Cosmic is a forgotten about character from McDonald Land from the 80s. Cosmic first appeared on a trade mission and stole a bunch of food basically from Ronald and his friends. Went back to Cosmic Land, haven't seen them in 30-some years, and he's been doing some innovating, right, experimenting with like different tastes and flavors, and they're coming back now, and we're happy to introduce Cosmic back into Earth.
Right. Have you guys, did anyone remember that character? No? It's an interesting internet rabbit hole to go down. Very cool. Look, one of the things, talking with you guys and just, following the coverage that's really impressive is the timeline for this, right? I mean, can you, when did this all begin? And, what was that time frame from the original conception to that first prototype?
Yeah, so this all started probably in mid 2022 with like a small corporate strategy team partnering with some design and strategy firms to really build out what is that occasion and that space that we want to go after, what made sense for McDonald's. And then we kind of got the board of directors thumbs up in October of 22, and that's when our senior leaders started to look to source the team. And I would say in earnest, everything kind of started in the first quarter of 2023. That's when we were fully staffed up with our team of about 15 folks. And yeah, from basically that point on, we were given a little bit of a shell of an idea of what the concept should be, but then it basically turned into, this team figuring everything out in about 10 months. So that's when we opened up the Bolingbrook restaurant in December.
Right, and we're going to dig into the process of what that looked like. That's what we'll spend most of our time on today. But can you, since that was in December, you just mentioned, where are we at right now? How many locations do you have, and where are you?
Yeah, so outside of Bolingbrook, we've just completed 3 new restaurants in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So as you can see on the slide, these are our latest locations. We have Dallas, near North Dallas. We have Watauga. And then we have Arlington, which is right off of UT Arlington's campus. So we're at 4 right now. That's kind of the end of wave 1. And our last one opened was in Arlington, and it actually was paired with the solar eclipse. We had kind of a solar eclipse viewing party. So
oh, really?
Again, leaning into the space theme of it, which was a great partnership with the city of Arlington.
Wow, very cool. And that previous slide there, there are different formats from the one that we're seeing there?
Yeah, definitely. So the first wave that you're kind of seeing are kind of renovations of like second-gen buildings, right? As we start building out kind of that pilot portfolio, we're going to have 10 pilots across Chicago, but centering more on Dallas, Fort Worth, and San Antonio. And we're testing different formats, different sizes. This one was Bolingbrook, 4-lane drive-through.
Sure.
The 2 that we opened in Dallas have 1-lane drive-throughs. And then the last one we just opened have no drive-throughs at all.
Okay, it's just like a walk-up.
Yep, walk-in order with kiosks.
Okay,
yep.
Great. We'll touch on that as well. Has anyone actually been to a CosMc's? Yeah, okay. Do you guys wait in line for hours as well? No? Okay, yeah. So look, and why Texas for that first wave outside of Bolingbrook?
Well, I would say, it's an exciting market, huge population growth, right? It checks all the boxes. So a lot of concepts, highly competitive area. So you want to go and compete and see what customers like. And again, really explosive growth from obviously a population perspective.
Right. All right, so talk us through then the kind of like the end-to-end user experience. I guess we'll talk about Bolingbrook, right?
Yeah, so what's on the slide here is Bolingbrook. So for those that haven't been, right, you you pull up to the speaker post and you pick any of the lanes to enter. You pull up into the digital menu boards, you're greeted by an order taker, and that's really where the digital menu boards start to shine. We've built in some interesting functionality there to help customers guide them through their exploration of the menu. And you take your order and then you pay at the speaker post, so that's one of our key innovations that we're really excited about. And as you pay, you then wait. So it's a little bit of like, if you think about if you place an order at the front counter, for instance, it's a little bit more of that operating model where you place your order, then you step to the side and you wait, and then when your order's ready, they call you, right? So that's kind of what happens here. So here's a close-up of that speaker post with the menu boards. And then you get called to a window. So your order's ready, they call you to the window, you pull up, and you're greeted by one of our restaurant team members, which we call explorers. And the captains are the shift managers, so really, again, playing into that space theme. And so you're greeted by the explorer, and you're presented your order, and you're on your way.
Wow, okay. Wow, that's really fascinating. Again, I want to dig into the process of coming up with that. So, and also, it was, we saw in the footage there as well, someone flew from London, the lines were huge, we all saw those headlines, which is a good problem to have, obviously, when you're launching something like this. But I guess, what have you done since to kind of alleviate those issues, or is it kind of leveled off as well now?
Yeah, so the response from our customers has been out of this world. Honestly, it's been a ride. But I think what we're trying to do as we start rolling out our portfolio of pilots is kind of group everything into waves, right? So for two reasons, we're going to stagger openings, right? And then we kind of like pull pressure off of like individual locations so we don't see that high demand. The other things that we're doing is, like, can't say this enough, like test and learn, right? So we're rolling out different ways of operating, right? Different service channels. For instance, we just opened up Wave 1 in Dallas, Fort Worth, and we rolled out handheld order taking within a couple weeks.
Right, okay, within a couple of weeks?
Yeah.
Was that something that you'd had previously in your back pocket, or you sort of started from scratch?
I think it was a pivot,
Yeah.
We're just, to your point, is like we're trying to like satisfy customer demand, and like how do we meet that need, right, very quickly.
Yeah. All right, well, let's dig into the process. So, from my understanding, I mean, this is kind of interesting to me how you guys did this. So you developed your own separate business unit or team. Can you run us through the structure of that? And I guess, what does it look like?
Yeah, so the team was about 15 individuals that were very cross-functional. So we had a team leader who really, kind of set us up for a lot of success. And then, we had a menu marketing lead, we had a brand lead, consumer insights lead, a finance lead. We had obviously Sean and myself, and I have another tech counterpart, and Sean had a real estate partner, and then operations lead. So I think like that really small cross-functional team, and then later on, we added in like field operations and people, just to kind of help as we started to get closer to the pilot, start to staff up. But
yeah, and I think the other interesting part of it was we were actually kind of partitioned away from the base business, and that was done very early on. It was a strategic kind of decision from like our CEO, Chris Kay, our CMO, Morgan, and to have that autonomy and support from them from the beginning was, I think, a bit unique than how we normally do things. And I think, they've really encouraged us to leverage the McDonald's system when we need it, but we're actually encouraged even more to kind of, take risks if we need to meet those aggressive deadlines.
Have you guys worked like this before at McDonald's, or is this a relatively new thing in terms of like developing this process?
Yeah, so I've worked in, like I said in my intro, Ready on Arrival and building new front counters as part of like McDonald's Experience of the Future, and a lot of those are inherently kind of cross-functional because you need to, work with operations or hardware or, restaurant design. But this is my first foray since grad school in some sort of small, like cross-functional, high-performing group. I don't know, Sean?
Short answer, no. This is very unique. But I mean, I have worked on some cross-functional teams, like doing pilots and initiatives like in global markets. One thing that comes to mind is I worked on a Latin American dessert center for McDonald's that kind of cross-pollinated in different parts of the world. And that truly kind of actually had kind of the same structure. You have like a cross-functional team, but again, the difference was it wasn't like that was one of the 5 initiatives that you were working on. So I kind of look back on it as definitely training wheels for the motorcycle that we're on right now.
Right, okay. Good way to look at it, or spaceship. Yeah. Before I kick on, so what's the customer that you guys are going for?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, Josh touched on it. You know, the purpose of this was to kind of expand the McDonald's brand, right? First and foremost, see what other ways the brand can show up to all consumers. However, if you start looking at the menu, right, it becomes very evident it's a beverage-led occasion, right? You have these like bold flavors, really bright colors. So obviously, it's going to resonate with like the younger generations, especially with Gen Z.
Okay. Talk us through then your journey to that first, minimum viable product, or your first prototype. You know, how did you get to that version? Can you run us through that?
Yeah. So Global MCX are the part of the group that we're underneath, is really investing heavily in design thinking and a lot of training. So I think one of the things I really want the group to get across today is this process and how we did that. So one of the things that we did here on the first slide you'll see is we had the fortunate opportunity. Obviously, we had a little bit of a shell of what the concept needed to be, but we started greenfield, and you don't really get that gift of starting from nothing, but that's also really hard to navigate. That's a very fuzzy area, right? So one of the things that we did really early on is something called service. It's a service design technique within, it all ladders into kind of the design thinking philosophy, but what we're doing here in the room is actually a service blueprinting exercise. So this is something that the team, you get in a room, you lay out the journey end to end of everything that, you want the consumer to get across, right? So whether that's the messaging in the moment, what's happening from a digital front end, what's happening in the back end with operations, and you really start to then get all the stuff that's in people's heads out on paper. So as I kind of flip through, you can see we're all collaborating. So this is the team. This is a small cross-functional group of us, and we're writing out, all the actors, all the players, and you can see these maps start to get really complex, but they're also a really strong alignment tool because you're co-creating the journey with everybody, and everyone then has that common understanding, and it raises then a lot of questions and hypotheses and things that you need to parking lot, but then that becomes your agenda for things to test. And to build. So, and then the second part of that is the prototyping, as you said. So, it's one thing to do all the sticky notes and have like a really fun photo and workshop session, but then how do you bring that to life? So that was where, we really started to go low fidelity. So this was us in a conference room. So I, got a conference room booked out in our headquarters, and all of us got together, and it was like, all right, let's bring the stuff that we just sticky noted to life. And so we created these 4 lanes. We used these whiteboards as kind of walls. We got flip charts to kind of simulate like the digital menu board experience, and we were order taking through Teams, right? Like it was like a really just super scrappy way. You can see Sean really playing a role. And again, everyone's invested. Everyone's really bought in because they're prototyping and experiencing it together. So this was a really powerful way for us to do this. And we did this, like I said, on the timeline. Like we did this probably about this time last year was when we were doing this.
Really? Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Wow. How many prototypes did you go through to get to that first location?
Yeah, so, obviously we did that low fidelity prototype, we call that a paper prototype sometimes, but then we started to also leverage our innovation center. So we have an innovation center in the suburbs of Chicago, and this is actually a shot of that. So some of the stuff that we do here, and we didn't actually touch on it with how things were set up, but everything was a secret project, right? So we had to skin everything McDonald's. We didn't want people to know exactly what we were working on. So when we recruit customers, like we actually set this up in the parking lot outside of our innovation center, where we wheeled out some digital menu boards. We hooked them up to some clickable prototypes, and run customers through it and really get them to touch and feel and experience what we're trying to go for, and really start to debunk any of the hypotheses or prove out some of the hypotheses from that service blueprinting. And yeah, I think this was one of probably 12. So we would probably do about 2 tests like this per month, where we really start to ratchet up the fidelity each time. So from that paper prototype to something a little more clickable to then something actually working software. And then as you're doing that, you're really de-risking what you're doing along the way. So
2 a month, right?
Yeah. So here's the setup. You can kind of see how scrappy it is. We've got the tent there where everybody's, on headsets, taking the orders and driving the prototypes. So it's a really good way to build out the operational procedures, the scripting for the order takers, and it's just it's a really powerful process to, again, just keep that alignment and co-creation strong.
Right. Apart from all this, is there anything, I mean, again, when you showed the paper prototype, as you called it, and that was a year ago, how'd you move so quick? Any other insights?
I mean, Josh touched on kind of like the co-creation, design thinking, right? There were some things that we kind of paralleled in process. Typically, a lot of companies just wait to get to the end of step 1 to go to step 2. So you can gain some time very quickly by doing that. But I think there's some really interesting, just small things to note. Kind of stepping back and looking how fast we've come. One is, I would just say we've touched on it, the passion, right, of everybody on the team. Kudos to our leaders that put this team together, because we all kind of are cut from the same thread. So that's number one. The other thing is just team culture and ways of working is a really big thing these days. And I know it's kind of buzzworthy, right? But there's something to it. And even in our base business at McDonald's, we talk about ways of working. So we have a bunch of things that we're trying to promote. And one of them that I think really resonates is discuss, don't present, in meetings. Mm-hmm. Right, so don't take the time to do these flashy, decks, and then go into a meeting and just literally present and then walk away and you're what did we just do? We were just talked to for 3 hours. So I think, just getting in there, aligning, discussing, getting to the root of the problem very quickly is really good. And then from our team, we've kind of created our own kind of team norms, if you will. It's one team, one goal, have fun along the way. Act as an owner as well. So if this was your business, right, and you're spending this money, what's the direction you feel it should go? And then when you start viewing things from that lens, you get that buy-in very quickly, and you get that kind of connection to what you're doing. And then the last thing I would just say is we have this rule we call the 80% rule, and we literally joke about it all the time, and we go through daily and have to challenge each other on it. And it's just prioritizing progress over perfection. Sometimes you don't need 100%. Sometimes 80% is just enough.
Mm-hmm. With that because it is so cross-collaborative, and thank you for diving into it in such depth. How does that translate to the actual finished product in a way? Do you see those elements kind of represented in the final version?
Yeah. So actually, if you look at it from a customer perspective, the first thing you're going to notice, and Josh touched upon it, is when you go to order, that speaker post has payment integration. So you can do cashless right there, tap or insert your card. So from design, manufacturing, right, tech side of things, that all comes together. And it's interesting because everything is based on vehicular design, right? And then when you start layering in kind of the human scale ergonomics of it, that there's some challenges there. So we're actually testing a lot of different things. We have 2 different ways in right now, and we're collecting the data to see what resonates with the customers that's easy for them. I think the other thing that you're going to see is marketing, brand, and design really had to work hand in hand very early in the process. From our base business, the budget for marketing is vastly different, right? So that means the design really had to do a lot of heavy lifting for the brand itself, right? Mm-hmm. So the design or the building itself had to act as a billboard for the brand that we're trying to build. So I think working as a team and trying to just get brand consistency, and then also kind of designing a design system, right, that you can kind of flex to different typologies, and then kind of have these brand Easter eggs, kind of winks and nods throughout the journey. That actually, you put it in there. We have a line when you get your drink, we say, have a nice sip, right? So we put it on the wall as you leave. And then it became a background, right, for people taking pictures with their products, which was pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm. Did you draw upon any other influences, any other concepts or anything when you were sort of pulling this together?
Yeah, I think, from a physical plant and the actual end-to-end user experience, I'd say no. It's not about concepts. It's about the customer, like what the customer wants, and that's all changing very quickly. I think you see that, people want to order differently. They want choices, and they also want to kind of explore and order on their own terms. So, we have kiosks in some of our locations, the 3 that we open in Dallas, and you'll see when you start picking your products, you'll have a customization panel that walks up. It's kind of guided exploration of like how to customize your drink. And then even through the drive-thru, like our explorers do a really good job of kind of, guiding the customers through this journey. And yeah, it's pretty powerful. So,
what's running this? And then I guess also thinking about just seamless and frictionless experiences and making it as ultra convenient for the customer as possible. Like, how did you come up with what you?
Yeah, so I think we made a decision really early on in the team that we wanted to source a commercial off-the-shelf vendor to stand up our tech stack. So we did that mainly because for 2 reasons. One was to protect the base business and the priorities of McDonald's and what our global technology teams are building for global mobile app and the restaurant. And the other thing too was we needed to innovate at pace because of the aggressive timelines. We wanted to really make sure that we selected a partner with a cloud-based platform, something really agile, so that it's very configurable. We can try a lot of different settings and test it, and then if that doesn't work, we can kind of pivot and try something else. So that's a core of our tech stack is a cloud-based partner that we found. And then the other piece is we did build out some of our own owned channels. So we have a shared services layer that integrates into this cloud platform, and that drives a lot of the .com experience, but then it's also going to power that mobile app, which is coming in a couple weeks.
Okay. And Sean, for you, just from a design perspective, you touched on some elements as well. What were your kind of main objectives when you were pulling this together?
Yeah, so I mean, the building had to act as a billboard, like I mentioned. If you look at it, we're really kind of leaning into kind of this space-inspired theme of Cosmic, right? So the base building itself was, it's kind of a gray color. It was inspired by moon rock. There's the gray, the texture of it, right? Layered on top of that, you have the metallic blue surface, right? That's the majority of the building. And if you look at like a very distinct angle, you start to see a bit of a shimmer, and it's kind of like stardust to it. And then you start adding in kind of the vibrant yellow, the hint of gold, a wink to the master brand, right? And then the patterning right on the perf walls, right? You start to get kind of that brand's energy, and that really does come alive, I think, in those perforated walls that you're seeing on the screen. And if you start to look just right, there's kind of a little bit of an orbit that you see, and it comes alive at night, right? And that orbit does a couple things. One, it ties back to our road sign that you've seen up here. But it also is like a huge wink and the nod to like the actual golden arches of the brand, right? And then at night, of course, like it kind of takes a life of its own, and it has this golden moment, right, that we think is super ownable for CosMc's.
Okay. And how much space is this prototype here, this version here, and I guess how much land is that on?
Yeah, so Bolingbrook is a retrofit of an existing building. It was actually an old Boston Market. So that's much larger than what we actually wanted. Again, speed, right? So we can't get everything we want when we want it. But I would say like the first wave are all retrofits. We're still testing and learning what we actually need. We're going to be moving into building our prototypes. And like I'll be clear, this is going to be a small footprint, so 1,200 to 1,300 square feet.
Okay. What's it been like dealing with municipalities for you guys doing this, and also given it was so quick, and I mean that's something that so many people are dealing with, right?
Yeah. So we've done a lot of traffic impact studies for municipalities, but no, seriously, there's a lot of questions, right? We don't deal with anything differently than anybody else deals with on a day-to-day basis. Being new, I would actually say we have a lot more questions because they don't actually know who we are, what we're trying to do, or how it operates. So I think just kind of peeling back the layers of the onion to figure out like where their questions are coming from, because usually it's a reaction to something that's happened, right, that they've experienced locally. So once you understand that, I think you can, have creative ways of coming up with solutions for them. And at the end of the day, we want to be in the community, we want to be good partners. So just kind of figuring out a path forward with them, and there's always a path forward.
Right. Okay. And look, the employee experience from both your perspectives, perhaps, what did that process look like in terms of making it as efficient as possible, and how do your explorers like the experience so far?
Yeah, so what you're going to see in all of our buildings, right, that have drive-thrus, is number one is lighting. For me, I'm like kind of a geek when it comes to lighting. So on the inside of the kitchen and the beverage area, you're going to see something very differently that you don't see anywhere else. It's warmer lighting, right? It's how you light the surfaces. All of these little things kind of create like a calmer experience, right, for the kitchen. Also, we let our explorers play music in the kitchen. So you have that. The other thing is the transparency on the drive-thru. So we have 3 pickup windows, as Josh had mentioned. The transparency does a couple things. You're actually bringing daylighting into a workspace. Like, that's a no-brainer, right? Like, why don't you do that all the time? So that really kind of helps with creating that calm environment. The other thing is, I think, just looking at the ergonomics of the workstations, right? The flow of the products, and then obviously the flow of the explorers and how they fulfill orders. So all of that kind of works hand in hand. And then leveraging technology, like when we need it to reduce the cognitive load of our explorers, I think is really important for us, right? So all of these things really kind of set the stage kind of for the explorers to shine on, and all of that really is creates a great customer experience, right? So if you take care of the explorers in our own 4 walls and create a great workplace for them and that culture, it comes through on the customer side, which is really important.
I can't believe we're basically out of time already. But look, I mean, what's something that folks in this room can take away? I mean, it's a super fascinating process that you went on a journey to be able to build this. I think it's kind of easy to say, well, there's a ton of resources or whatever, but what can these guys walk away with from this process that would help them in what they do?
Yeah, I think for me, it's, things aren't going to always go according to plan, right? C'est la vie. So really being agile as a team, knowing that you're going to have to pivot at some point, and just, readying yourself and be self-aware, like to just be agile on that. So I'd always say, like, have a plan B.
Yeah, I think for me, it was really living and experiencing like the power of that cross-functional team with that top-down leadership support, really relatively flat organization where we were very empowered to make the decisions, act like an owner. And I think like that was really just the key for us to move at the speed, hit this really aggressive goal. We were all marching towards that aggressive goal, so I think that's really a key takeaway.
Wow. Amazing. Any lessons learned? Anything, last words before we...
Could I ask you a question?
Sure.
Your socks.
Oh,
I like the subtle wink and nod to our brand.
No, that was totally accidental, actually. I was going to wear an orange sock, and then for no reason at all, I was like, no, it's a yellow sock I got to wear today. So really subliminal, subconscious. It's yo, Team CosMc's. Yeah. Okay, right. Wow. Josh and Sean, thank you so much. This has been really wonderful. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.